I am Mandy Evans. I am the executive director at Better Together Animal Alliance in North Idaho and the creator and founder of Home to Home. I'm really excited to be here today, especially because I'm here with my sister, Melanie.
Hello, everyone. My name's Melanie Sadek. I'm the executive director for Valley Humane Society in Pleasanton, California. I also am very active with the California Animal Welfare Association and have a sincere love of this topic. And so you guys are going to be tortured by both of us and not know who is speaking when, because we also sound the same.
All right, so this is the two of us when we were little, just to prove that we are actually twins. I'm the one with the really funky, I don't know what's going on face. And the reason that we came together is that we both feel really passionate about this topic. I recently rebranded our organization and went through a pretty extensive process and just wanted to be able to share it with people. I know that I've had a number of questions from individuals wanting to know whether they should rebrand or they shouldn't rebrand. I'm hoping that this presentation today kind of walks you through the full scope of what this looks like so that you can make better decisions. How about you, Melanie?
So I've had kind of three experiences. When I worked for AAA, the California State Automobile Association, we had a new CEO come in part, like halfway through my time there, and I was able to watch him really kind of reevaluate who we were as an organization and create some really strong values and visions for the organization, and how he rolled that out and the impact it had on every aspect of our business. And so when I left there, I actually started my own business called Murphy's Paw, which is a retail store in downtown Pleasanton. In that capacity, I had the opportunity to build a brand from scratch and really kind of create the image that I wanted. And I wanted to create a feeling. So when people came into the store, I wanted it to be like Cheers. But I also wanted people to feel like we were a chain. And so with those expectations of the feelings I wanted, what did I need to do with my brand, with my customer service, the products we carry to help people feel that way? Then I sold the store, which is still alive and well under a new ownership, and came over to Valley Humane, which was in business for 23 years before I got there. And so they had an existing brand. And so after I had been there for about 2 years, we did a kind of a full rebranding, logo, not name change, but logo change, color change, values, the whole deal. And I can tell you that what's made me really passionate about this topic is watching the transformation that doing that exercise, actually, the results of all of it. It was very eye-opening to see what kind of impact just thinking about your brand and making changes can have on your organization, your staff, and your community support.
All right, Melanie, I'm going to mute so that no one gets tortured by my crazy dogs.
It's one benefit of being in this industry is that we are all very tolerant of each other's animals. So what is brand? Oftentimes people will associate brand with your logo, and they think, oh, we're going to have a brand change because we're getting a new logo, or we're changing our name. But really, it's not the products and services, the logo, the mission statement, the website, your staff. It's really a result of everything. So everything gets kind of pulled into how people feel about your organization. Go ahead, Mandy. And so your brand is a feeling. And so when people hear about you, when they interact with you, every touch point is resulting in a feeling that they have. And it's important to recognize that there is a brand feeling and there's a brand perception. And in animal welfare, we do have a pretty big perception issue that we often need to be kind of challenging. And so that could be if you run an organization that is considered, let's say, a no-kill, Well, you have kind of the perception that goes along with that national brand that goes with no kill. If you are running a municipal shelter, and people, it might not be the best brand that people associate based on what they've said or done. And it may be, and oftentimes is totally untrue. But knowing your brand perception based on the industry also helps you build a stronger brand internally. And so taking all of this into consideration helps you create kind of the feeling that you want people to have when they participate with your organization. And so I love this quote. Maya Angelou, I think almost everything she has ever said in her life is probably, golden. But this one I have framed in my office. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And oftentimes, I'll never forget, we had one couple come into Valley Humane Society. They weren't super happy. They had to rehome their dog. And so they came in for an evaluation. And the dog ended up being way more than we were going to be able to help. And so we had to say no. And I just remember our operations manager leaving the room after saying no. And they gave us $100 donation and hugged her. And I'm like, holy moly. You just totally disappointed them because we can't help them. And yet you got a hug and a donation. And so it was how she made them feel about what was happening. She didn't judge them. She didn't, diminish them in any way. And she really built them up. And so even though she had to say something to them that they didn't want to hear, she still left them knowing that we cared about them. And so sometimes when we are in organizations where we have to do enforcement or things that maybe don't always make people that happy with us, we can potentially have positive outcomes just in the way that we choose to interact with people. So what do you want people to feel when they engage with your organization? And so Mandy and I are going to kind of go through this whole process of trying to help you, because sometimes when you're talking about feelings, this can be, this isn't really concrete stuff. This can be a little subjective. And so I oftentimes think about, gosh, where's my happy place? Like if I'm going to go somewhere that's going to really make me happy, where is that going to be? And that's going to be at the nursery that is in the town next door to us. I love it. It's stunningly beautiful. It's like Disneyland. I love it. I walk in there and I immediately feel better. The staff is friendly. There's butterflies and hummingbirds. It's just a very happy place and environment. My husband, he might go to Best Buy. That might be his happy place. And so what we do tend to avoid are places that make us feel bad, that diminish us somehow, or we just don't enjoy the experience. So oftentimes this is why people avoid going to the doctor, getting vaccinations, blood draws, DMV. Like we can list a whole slew of places that often we try to avoid because it doesn't make us feel very good to be there. So when we're thinking about our brand and our customer experience and our donor experience, even our staff experience, we really do want to try to create an environment where people want to be and they want to associate with us. And so we're going to go through a little bit of an exercise. And what we want you to think about when you're looking at these pictures is that part of you really are going to just be perceiving based on the picture what it makes you feel or think. But what you want to think is when somebody walks into your facility or they engage with you, what are they seeing? What are they hearing? What are they smelling? How do these environments, just by what they see or experience, may affect how they feel? And remember this whole thing, you can never, you can never have a second first impression. That's kind of what we're talking about is what do you want people to think when they see these things? So we're going to go ahead and put up some of these pictures and put it in the chat, what you guys are thinking. Mandy's going to monitor the chat and kind of help us have a virtual conversation since we can't hear you. All right, so the other thing with this is we may have to take our hats off from animal welfare and just look at the picture that we're seeing. So in this picture, we've got 3 dogs in here. When you see this, what is your perception? So immediately, what do you feel and think when you see this? Go ahead and put it in the chat. So we have sad.
Yeah. Brianna and Deanne said sad, crowded, smelly, dirty, depressing, anxious, need to help, smelly, right, smelly, dirty, depressing.
Now, this could trigger different feelings, right? So some people may feel like, oh my gosh, I need to adopt these dogs because I have to take them home and get them out of here. Other people will be like, oh my gosh, I can't even deal with this. I have to leave and I can never go back there again. And so I'm not gonna try to tell you that this environment is okay, but let's just say that, oftentimes how people perceive the environment and then what's actually happening are different. And so let's just say in this environment, these dogs that just came in, one of them is dealing with, we'll say Giardia. You've got no dog bed in there because the other one keeps eating it because it's anxious and they're worried about a bowel obstruction. And these three dogs absolutely love each other. And this particular shelter doesn't have kennels that are larger than this. But if they separate them, the dogs are very anxious and they start to actually suffer. And so with all those things, those kind of help us understand why this situation might be happening. And so from a branding perspective, if those things were happening, we could easily put a sign on this kennel that explains why some of the decisions were made, so that when people see it, they're like, oh, okay, they actually are thinking about the well-being of these animals. They're just, they're up against all these different challenges. And so it's just changing that perception with facts so if you don't tell people what's going on, they're going to make up the facts themselves. And so being transparent and communicating will help you.
All right.
All right. This picture.
This is Melanie and I's mom.
It is not.
Just kidding.
So we have our whole family in this. This is kind of a ridiculous picture of a crabby lady, but when you really, so what do you think? You walked in, this is the person. What's your emotions?
And Melanie, I can't see the chat. It disappeared. So.
Oh, we've got worried, grumpy, unpleasant. Somebody asked how we inform people if they don't read the signs. It doesn't seem welcoming. She doesn't want to be there. So all of these things are really, really true. And think again about the environment that many of us work in. So sometimes we think that customers they're like nasty and they're mean. And why are they yelling at us? We're here to help them. Well, if they're already kind of insecure because they think you're going to judge them, and oftentimes adoptions in many locations are a little bit about judgment. Do you have a fence around your house? Can we do a home visit? I need to look at your entire life to make sure that I trust you with this animal. So sometimes people walk into these shelters or engage with a rescue group, and they're very kind of nervous that they're going to have a lot of judgment laid on them. And so then when the person they're talking to looks at them this way, or they have an attitude on the phone, it creates this environment where they don't even want to engage with you because they feel like you're going to judge them. And so in the previous question, really quickly about putting signage up, you can't guarantee everyone's going to read everything, but at least you tried. And so as people, the more that you train them to look at the signs, the better it will be, but also knowing that staff and volunteers understand those reasons can help reiterate so that everyone's on the same page. I went to a shelter and almost stuck my hand into a kennel that clearly said, do not do that, the dog will bite you. And I was like, how could I not read the sign? Like, how did I do that? So no one's trying to just naturally avoid signs. It's just that sometimes we're so focused on the dog, we're not reading above. So put your signs down low. All right, next crazy picture. All right, so this is two cats that are probably in an isolation ward because we've got a URI, upper respiratory, and then two cats. So how does this make you feel? I'm not seeing Oh, there we go. Sad. Do you see it, Mandy?
Yep, I can see it now. Yeah. Informed.
Mm-hmm.
I want to help sick animals. Someone said cared for, cramped. Signs help. Glad that it's getting treatment. Sad, but cats are sick.
So for many of us, again, we have our lens on of being involved in this industry. So we know that these are sick animals and this is probably even not being seen by the public. But there, what are some of the things that this shelter could do to help create a warmer, more cared for environment? Like adding a bed. Yeah, so good bedding, putting a blanket in there. The softer, more comfy the environment looks, the more people will associate that with being cared for. And we can't smell these two kennels, but having people that are scooping, making sure the environment smells clean as much as possible. All of these things would help with community perception. Good job.
All right.
So how does this one make you guys feel? This is a relatively, from what we're seeing, it appears to be an empty shelter. What do you think?
Woohoo! Very happy, clean and sterile, happy. Now, I have to ask, you could put in the chat, is anybody actually experiencing empty kennels, empty cat cages, and how the community is responding to that? And you can add that to the chat.
All of these comments are really amazing. And so somebody wrote, I would wonder what happened to the dogs. I can tell you when I first started at Valley Humane, nobody even knew me. Like the volunteers didn't really know me. And when an animal would get adopted, people would ask me if we euthanize the animal. And so we really had to figure out how to, it's about building trust. And so how do I get them to know or reassure them? And so we came up with systems to inform people every single time an animal was adopted so that they got used to the fact that we are not euthanizing animals, we're adopting them out. Don't worry. And if we did have to euthanize, we would share that information. And so it's a really good point. So this is clearly some big time animal welfare people on here because some of them are super stoked that these kennels are empty.
I just want to give 2 cents that I think it's a really interesting dynamic that we're in because we are considered, we did this big push, don't shop, adopt. And yet we are faced with now this new transition in animal welfare where our energy and resources are really about working with the community to keep animals out of shelters. And it's sharing that story on a very high and poignant level with our community members so that they know every empty kennel is a good thing and that, our work should not be valued by the number of animals in cages. Just my 2 cents.
Yes. And so from a branding perspective, when we deal with this again at Valley Humane, we call it Kitty City. We could probably have about 40 cats in Kitty City. And in the beginning, we kind of did it. And our length of stay went up. We had more upper respiratory and more medical issues to deal with. And so what we then did is we started to decrease population. When we can keep Kitty City at 20 cats, then we decrease the length of stay, we increase the health and positive outcomes, but we still had to deal with our board members and sometimes the staff, volunteers, and public saying, how come there's not enough animals in here? And so, getting on top of that, if you hear it from a couple of people, you need to know that other people are thinking it and you need to jump on it right away. And so one of the things we did is we created a sign on these kennels. And especially right now in COVID, we said, like, this room isn't empty. It's being held for a cat in foster. Or this room isn't empty, it's full of possibilities. I mean, we just did fun things to try to help change how people were perceiving this as somehow us not doing the job that we needed to do. And then we took that messaging and we put it into all of our community information so that people would just know why we were making the choices, leading with why it was best for the animals, not for us.
All right, I'm going to switch gears really quick. I just want to call out Becca that was a really funny comment about all the animals escaping. So how do your stakeholders feel when they engage with your organization? So who interacts? You've got community members, donors, volunteers, staff, law enforcement, city government, community partners. So each stakeholder is going to have a feeling about your organization. And then you also want to ask yourself, how do you want them to feel about your organization? So we're going to just go through some of these stakeholders and questions that you can ask yourself. So customer service. How do people get greeted when they call or walk in? Is your team focused on helping and problem solving?
And then your physical environment. So when they walk in, what does it look like? How do they feel when they walk in? Are they greeted by smiling faces and people who want to help them? When your customer service person is on the phone, are they being sugary sweet, but they're making terrible faces? I had to deal with that at work. And so the environment you create, walking down maybe your dog ward, are there dog beds in there? Is there water in the bowl? How clean is it? Is there toys? Are you creating some warmth in the environment so that people automatically feel love? And then how does it smell? That's a big problem for us in animal welfare, but the way that it smells can also really trigger some very personal feelings.
Okay, communication. Is your messaging positive? And a big thing around this is if all of your fundraising and all of your communications really triggers the emotion of fear and sadness, keeping in mind that that's a temporary way to engage people. The more powerful way is that you want them to feel like they can make an impact. So you want to share those really successful stories around fundraising, just around, that an adoption happened and look at how great it was that this dog or cat is now in a home. Focus on positive outcomes that make your donors and community feel like you're really making a fabulous impact.
And then to kind of follow that with social media, same thing. So social media is a very living, breathing thing where people actually get to directly engage with you and your brand. And so keeping it very positive, ensuring that you're building people up, you're not tearing people down. And one of the things we did at Valley Humane was we have the home-to-home program, and people tend to like to shame people for rehoming their pets. And so what we decided to do was that our platform, because we're a private organization, we don't need to tolerate kind of bullying and inappropriate behavior. There's plenty of social websites out there where you can do that in pages, but not with us. So we created a boilerplate, and anytime somebody said something that we felt was shaming or didn't live our values, we would actually delete it. Now, I've had some shelter directors say, why would you delete it? You could be hurting a relationship with that donor. Why don't you just hide it? Well, hiding it is really justifying the behavior because that person doesn't know that you don't like what they said, and their whole network can still see those comments. And so we just delete it and we keep track of who those people are. And actually, we've noticed that those people will reframe how they communicate on our site because they don't want their posts to be deleted. So we're almost forcing people to be nice if they want to engage with us. If you run a public agency and you don't have that resource, I would talk to your public information officer and really look at how you can kind of police, if you will, those kind of messaging on your own site. And so collaboration also reflects on who you are. And so who you choose to partner with can really say something about you. And I think I was thinking this morning, what's a good example of this? And, think about a politician who takes a sizable donation from somebody, and that donation becomes public, but the politician doesn't look at who that person is associated with or who they're giving to. And they find out that they've given to something that's super negative. It reflects not so much on the giver as much as the receiver, because they then associated their own personal brand with that person. And so if you have a great relationship, let's say that you have a pet food pantry and you work with your human food distributor, promote the fact that your brands are working together, because that only lifts you up, because somebody with a positive brand image is associated with your organization. And I would say this is important for transfer partners too, is as if you are a public shelter or you do transfers, make sure that the people you're transferring, if it's possible, live your values, because if they don't, then that can reflect poorly on you, especially if they're not being nice to you kind of in social media or in their community engagement.
So community outreach, I think this is one that I feel like we tend to miss, is that we represent our community, a sector of our community, but there are people that we are out to serve that unless we actually hear their voice and feedback, we don't really know what they need. We're making assumptions. So, going to churches, going to community service centers, going to places like food kitchens and senior centers, that all of these places, and talking to the community members that you're trying to serve and finding out what their feedback is. How do they feel like you're doing? And are there areas that you thought that you could impact that actually don't really need your assistance?
Yeah, and I'm going to jump on that really quick too. When I worked for AAA, I supported the migrant workers. And we found that to have the greatest impact, we needed to partner with community-based organizations that worked with that community. And so those kind of making sure that you're really connected with the right groups to make the biggest impact can really make you hugely successful. And so the staff and volunteer relations, this is a pretty passionate part for me. I don't like this top-down management. I think everyone in your organization needs to have a voice. And as long as people feel heard, that can be just allowing people to be heard can make the biggest change in the world. Even those people that drive you crazy, give them an opportunity to be heard. And so one of my professional mentors, he always says, let people have a say. It doesn't mean they get their way. And I find this to be very beneficial. So even in staff meetings, I want everyone to speak up, because oftentimes the best decisions about who we are and what we do are coming from everybody. That's really kind of a democratic way of leading an organization versus autocratic, which is really top down. We tend to be more of a democratic society, especially as you hire younger people. It's a little bit of more of the expectations. I was looking at something in the chat. Becca asked really quick, I advocate against banning right away to give people a chance to change behavior. I'm not sure that Allison, that got put in the Q&A. Thank you, Allison. I'm not sure that I don't know that I understand this question completely, because if you ban somebody from your page, then they have no opportunity to change their behavior.
So Melanie, I think what she's saying is that, you don't ban people right away. Like you might delete a comment, and you're keeping track of the behavior. And if it doesn't change, then you ban them.
That's right. Sorry, I was not reading that properly. So yes, we do not ban people. So because we keep track of who they are, if they do tend to be really significant repeat offenders, we may ban them. But that's very rare for us to do, because what we found is people just change their behavior. So we're just deleting the comments. We're not banning the user. Thank you, Mandy.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So this Margaret Thatcher quote, I'm not necessarily a big Margaret Thatcher fan necessarily, but I love this quote. It says, watch your thoughts for they become words. Watch your words because they become actions. Watch your actions because they become habits. Watch your habits because they become your character. Watch your character for it becomes your destiny. What we think, we become. This is essentially branding. And the reason that this is so kind of applicable to this conversation is, I don't know how many of you have worked in different environments where you have like your CEO and then you've got your vice president, your staff, and then you've got all these different levels. And your CEO is saying, there's no top down. If you have a problem, you come to me directly. And then you have your VP saying, you go to that guy and tell him anything, or that woman, and you are fired. And so you can't be effective in your branding if everyone isn't on board, living, breathing, and wanting to make the change, because the success isn't about just one person, it's about everybody. And so if your leader, let's say for me, if I say I want transparency, but then I have a whole list of things that I want us to hide from people, then I am not living that. What I'm showing and putting out is different than what I'm saying we're supposed to do. And so, Mandy's going to walk you through the steps on kind of how to start this process. It's just important that you be very kind of authentic to who you are and what you believe in, or it doesn't really work.
Okay, so we've covered really what we think the brand is, which is everything. We've identified different ways that you can question and evaluate and look at your organization. And I am providing you with a takeaway document today that will really go through all of these steps in more detail so that you can put this into action. So essentially, your first step is you really want to gather a team of people. And my recommendation is you would bring some volunteers. You're going to bring your leadership or staff members into this. You're going to bring a few board members. It doesn't have to be the whole board. I would say a small group of like 6 people is really ideal, so that you are nimble enough to move around. And you want people that will understand the outside perception and your inside perception. So you're going to go through with sticky notes and you're going to write down all of the behaviors that you really like, that you love to see in the organization. And if people aren't really sure about identifying a specific word, they can put a situation down on that little card. And then those are all going to go up on a board. Then you're going to go through the same exercise, but you're really going to go through the behaviors you don't want. So the intolerable behaviors that you don't want to see in your organization. And then once you've done that, you're going to go through and you're going to categorize these different items by a single word. So you might have, I love that we're always honest and upfront with the community. I honor, so-and-so because this is what she did. And so maybe a value then is going to be trust. So you're just putting, you're taking all these notes and you're putting them into little sections. And then you will discuss, what does the section really mean? What's the core of it? Let's put a name to that. And that is a value that you appreciate. And you could do the same exercise for intolerable behaviors, because you will know the behaviors you do not want to have in your organization. Now, the next plan is that you're going to identify the values, but then you're going to take it just a little bit farther. You're going to draft your guiding principles. And the guiding principles is basically your value. And so you're going to say, we believe in, being authentic. Therefore, we will. And you're going to put down what behaviors will represent that value. And then the next step that I have to tell you, I think is my favorite step, is that you perform a quality check and you reevaluate. So you are going to put out a survey to everyone. So how we did this at our organization is we just did a Survey Monkey. We put that link out on Facebook. We sent it out to our e-newsletter group. We put it out to all of our staff. We also sent it out to all of our donors through a postcard, so they had the opportunity to participate. While that data, and I have an example of the survey in the booklet I'm going to give you. So while all of that is being collected, now you can go through with the same group of people and you're going to look at your values and you're going to say, okay, do we embody these values now? And you can go through each department, your front desk, your veterinary care, your intake, cats, dogs, however you want to do it. And you look through and you have people, again, write on sticky notes what you think the gap is. Is there a gap to really living these values? And if there is, then you put together a transformational plan. But before you do that, you're going to then include the feedback that you just received from your community. You're going to look at that feedback to determine, wow, were we really in line with our perceptions of what our values are and where our gaps are? Or these are some new ones that we think are really valid and we need to pay attention to. This will also help you with prioritizing your plan. Maybe you're just not very smiley. So an easy win was that you encourage people to, smile and be welcoming and do some sort of training around that. So all of these steps really take you to a place to determine whether or not you are ready to go through a full rebrand, or if there's some steps and actions that you can take before you get down to that level. All right, let's do. Okay, so this is just an example. So your value is a human-animal bond. You've outlined that your gap is your mission statement doesn't represent that value. Your intake and adoption processes need to be looked at. Fundraising and hiring are some concerns. So your plan is you're going to remove the shaming words and highlight the bond in your mission statement. You're going to update your adoption agreements application to remove critical or shaming language. And you're going to provide some customer service training to the front desk and work with them to understand how important that human relationship is. And you're going to create a hiring process that focuses on the new values and hire people who like people and animals. The only thing missing from this is that you should really have timelines connected to each of these. So I think something Melanie and I both want to stress is that small wins matter. It's okay if this takes you years and years and years. It did for us. We started back in 2015 and we just did a full rebrand this year. So just honor where you're at, the resources you have, and how you can get there. So just small wins. Even if you could establish values, if you already have values, maybe it's time to just go through and evaluate whether or not they still represent the organization and where you're going, or if maybe you need to add one. I know we added one. We added optimism because we really wanted to make sure that we were trusting and building a community that believes in other people. So we wanted to be optimistic. You're going to build your transformational plan. And then another important one is that you're going to model that behavior. So you're going to try to embody those values, model the behavior to other team members. And others, celebrate successes, celebrate the small wins, celebrate the fact that your team has come together, even if it's simply that you've been getting some negative feedback around the way you answer the phone, you change the way you do that, and you received feedback on that. Celebrate it with everyone, so everyone knows that they're a part of this and we're making progress. And then do regular check-ins, because some of these things are going to be hard for people. You're going to have team members that may not be completely on board with the changes that you want to make. You're going to want to provide them with space and the opportunity to grow along with you. And then the last one is your full rebrand. Do you want, sorry, my dogs are acting up. Do you want to change your name? Do you want to change your logo? Do you want to change your mission statement? These are all part of this plan, but those are really big items. And my recommendation is if you have a solid brand, and let's say it's Sandpoint, Humane. Okay, so if you're still only serving Sandpoint and you're still doing humane activities, then maybe you change your mission and you can tweak your logo, but you really don't need to necessarily change your name. So don't jump on the renaming and rebranding bandwagon just because it's something people are doing right now. Look at the small ways that you can build up to that until you're able to have the resources to go the full route. And the other thing too is if you can afford it, bring in a consultant to help you with this whole process. It will make it a lot easier for you. But even if you can't, it's still accomplishable.
So this is just an example. Valley Humane, these are our values. We just wanted to give you kind of an example of what this looks like. So compassion, companionship, optimism, gratitude, collaboration, and integrity. On our website, we have these listed. And under each of them, we write out what that means for us. And so for integrity, it really talks about kind of honesty, and that decisions are being made based on careful reasoning, that we're responsible with our money, and that we understand the commitment that those that our funders, supporters, staff, and animals put in us, and that trust to be responsible. And so I'll try to put it in the chat. Allison's so good at this, but I didn't give it to her ahead of time, that lists kind of all of those values so that you guys can just poke in there and see how we did it.
And just to address Becca's comment and question is, what do you do when there is a large gap? And so Becca, I've been there. This was back in 2015. I can say I didn't know what I was doing. I fumbled my way through it. But if you can go through and really focus on this process, I think that you will come out of it where you will have a clearer picture of how to handle people who are maybe not in line. I know everybody says, but these people have been with the organization forever. They want to be a part of this. They're so committed. We don't want to lose them. And I totally get that. And I think that there's an opportunity to provide people with steps and like check-ins to help them. But there does come a point where if you have people who work for the organization that are not in line with your value system, that you have to be okay with letting them go. And that's really difficult because a lot of people who are in animal welfare for forever have been really more animal people and not people. And so it can be really stressful on them. But also, if the root of the problem and why people are kind of gloomy and they're not super engaged, you're going to want to do an evaluation of your HR side and how you, like, what is the gap on your employee side, and really evaluate that and get feedback from your team to see where you can put resources and assistance to get them to where they need to be. I hope that answers your question. Okay, so Better Together Animal Alliance, that's kind of me. Our old mission was to diminish the number of lost, abandoned, neglected, and abused dogs and cats through adoption, education, litter prevention, and identification of missing pets. So you'll notice there are 3 words that we don't even say in our organization: lost, abandoned, abandoned, neglected, and abused. Each of those words represents a bad person. And we know that the animals coming in are not all due to bad people. They're just certain circumstances. So we didn't want to put that in there anymore. So our new mission is to create and support meaningful connections by enhancing the lives of dogs, cats, and the people in our community who love them. Our old logo, Panhandle Animal Shelter, and our new logo just represents, and our new name, Better Together Animal Alliance. The reason that we did a full rebrand is because we have the Home to Home program. We have a podcast. We do a lot of national work, and we want to have the flexibility and freedom to honor that we are more than just a local shelter. We are doing, our impact is greater than that. And then we really wanted to incorporate people into our logo and really the heart of what we do, which is trying to keep animals and people together. We have exciting news. We exist to create and support meaningful connections by enhancing the lives of dogs, cats, and the people in our community who love them. Okay, that's not news. How we go about achieving our mission has evolved, and because of that, we have outgrown our name, Panhandle Animal Shelter, because we are so much more than a shelter.
In 2019, of the 8,400 animals we served, only 2,500 entered into the shelter. This is because our programs and services support both sides of the human-animal bond, keeping animals out of the shelter and in loving homes where they belong.
Thanks to this approach and to generous support from people like you, we've quadrupled the number of animals assisted in 5 years, reduced the length of time an animal stays in a shelter by 77%, and reduced owner surrender animals entering the shelter by 33%.
I received a phone call from my youngest daughter stating that Molly had suffered a really bad cut on her hind end. It happened to be the day after we wrote a check for our mortgage and paid the truck payment, so we had about 38 cents in our bank account. We're put in touch with the Panhandle Animal Shelter helpline. They offered to pay basically half of the veterinary bill. With that in hand, when I walked up to my vet, he said, well, if we've got a pledge for half, I can wait 2 weeks on the balance from you. They immediately took care of the animal because of the backing that we had from the Animal Shelter helpline. She received 9 stitches across her quarter side. She's back to full 100%. Without the health service line, we would not have been able to do this. Molly, I'm sure, thanks you. It was an amazing resource to have, and for the people that have made this possible, thank you so much.
This is Orton, and he has water on the brain, which means it's swelling on his cerebellum, which means he has no balance. He walks around like he's drunk. I really couldn't do a lot without the animal shelter helping me. We've got him all his shots because I never knew what his shots were. So just to be safe than sorry, we got him all his shots, and we're working on trying to get him in to visit the vet to see if I can do anything else to help him.
Be assured, our name is changing, but our mission, staff, and programs remain the same. More than ever, we are committed to supporting the human-animal bond, because when it comes to people and animals, we believe we're all better together.
Because we're better together.
We're all better together. Better together.
Better together. Better together.
Better together.
Better together.
Panhandle Animal Shelter is now Better Together Animal Alliance. New name, same mission, supporting the human-animal bond.
So I didn't say this, but what we did with this video is really control the messaging. So people were pretty upset that we would change Panhandle Animal Shelter that had been around for 20 plus years. And we really had to share with them why were we putting this energy and focus into, it's such a huge change. And it really worked. So controlling the message, don't let other people dictate that messaging for you. So thank you. And let's see if we have any questions.
I want to add some color to the previous question about kind of existing tensions within your organization. These are, 2 pieces of my wisdom for what it's worth. One thing that I've noticed is that people unite for 2 reasons. They unite over a common enemy or a common mission. And sometimes we lose focus on what the mission is and what we're trying to achieve. And we allow people to get a little kind of off course. And so you can evaluate your brand by looking at, is my team aligned around what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish? Or are they kind of aligned around things that are exaggerated or untrue? And so really evaluating where you kind of might land. I noticed this when I worked in my corporation. Everybody disliked my boss. And even people who didn't really like each other would unite over the fact that everyone disliked her. And so it's always been my goal at work to try to make sure that we're all united on a common cause. We often say we don't need to create the drama. It already comes to us. And then lastly, people, when you do have a lot of drama or gossip in your organization, it's often because people don't know what's going on. And so you can help resolve some of the unknowns by being very transparent, communicating very openly about everything that's happening so that people don't have the opportunity to make stuff up. Because as soon as you have to defend something, you're automatically wrong. And so being very transparent, explaining why you made those decisions and what's going on can really pull your team together and kind of get them out of a rut that they might be in. And I do agree with Mandy. If you're going to go through this process, you need to hold everyone accountable to it, which can be very uncomfortable. But even the nicest person that's mean to your public probably can't stay. But you do give them a chance, obviously, coach them through it. But those are big, hard decisions.
And then I see that Becky had a question around rolling out your new mission statement. My recommendation would be make sure that all of your team and all of your staff are totally on board, that they know why the mission statement is changing, that, if they had an opportunity to participate in that, that's fantastic. And then I would kind of do what we did, control the messaging, explain why you felt like it was important to change, and put maybe data behind that. Like, we've helped this many animals and we found that our mission doesn't match our work. And so it's time to adjust. Melanie, do you have any points on that?
I think oftentimes what we forget in our world is as soon as we make a decision, we just want it to be so. I know that my team gets frustrated with me because I tend to take a long time to roll out change. I message the board, and I might message the board months before we make a change so that I can feel where they are and start to lay the groundwork. And so change in an organization is like paving a path. You have to just kind of start and then just move it all the way through. And so maybe think about how that messaging will roll out, maybe without even saying it first, but start to communicate why things in animal welfare are changing. And then the end result is we have decided that we need to change our mission. So slow is okay.
So just as a reminder to everyone, the conversation can continue on Maddie's Pet Forum. And we're also interested in knowing if you want to do more, if you want to dive into this subject more, let us know. There's a lot of opportunity in different exercises and games and things you can play that can help your team come along on a culture change with you. So we want to be as impactful as we can. So just give us your feedback.